First, I wanted to make a disclaimer, sort of disclaimer. This is a work in progress. It's research that I'm doing in progress. So please take it as such. It's rather a sort of theoretical, rather, evaluation of AI, starting as a premise from the acousmonium as a concept, as an instrument, as a phenomenon. So I will discuss the machinic condition, quote unquote, of artistic experience in these specific circumstances. And more precisely, I will discuss the principles of distributed agency between machine, space, and author. Hence the title of my presentation. And I will give some, I think, relevant examples of AI-based artworks. Again, taking acousmonium as a significant precedent of AI works. Why? Because in my view, both acousmonium and AI installations emphasize abstraction and hidden mechanisms of creation. On the one hand, acousmonium conceals sound sources to immerse listeners in pure sonic phenomena, while AI often operates as a sort of black box, generating content, that means images, sound, written text, and so on, from vast data sets without transparent human-like causation. But as Emilian has mentioned, I'm an art historian. My background is in art history, so I can't resist but look a little bit over the shoulder to the history of automatic ways of producing some sort of creative output. That means movement, music, writing, and not simply mechanisms that work. So let me just make a very short overview on some interesting, I think, inventions, let's say, that people put out since the antiquity. And indeed, the ancient Greeks were perhaps the first to provide the examples of automata. And we know they have engineering skills quite advanced for the epoch, and they develop a lot of mechanisms that some of them were used in buildings, some other were meant to mimic living things, and all sorts of I don't know, spectacular phenomena. And there are a lot of examples in this sense. Hero, or Heron, as we call it in Romanian, is of Alexandria. Is one of them, one of the most prolific inventor, and he devised, among many other things, some of them were kept until today. Devised, for example, a water basin that featured metal birds which sang, with hydraulic mechanisms and singing birds using water pressure to push air through pipes, which made sounds to create a chirping effect. And there is an owl over there which moved its head, and when it moved its head towards the birds turn quiet. Then in the Middle Ages, we have, for example, the history. We don't have the mechanism itself of Emperor Theophilus, who has reputed to have a throne which could move towards the ceiling. And the stories mention that his palace featured moving and roaring lions. Not bad. Huh? But what we have, and the history has kept for us, is Ismail al-Jazari, a book. He's a Islamic polymath who worked in the end of 12th century. And he published this book called The Book of Knowledge of Ingenious Mechanical Devices, published in 1206. With the lushly colored illustration that previously invented devices, and also his own invented devices. This one, for example, is a boat carrying 4 automatic figures, including a harpist, a flautist, and drummers. Oh, yeah. Again, powered by water, the automaton musicians perform songs and various rhythms. What is amazing for this device is that it can be programmed. So that's quite something quite advanced. The drummers featured movable pages or cams. The user could also adjust the different rhythms, making one of the earliest examples of a programmable machine. And also automata were used in different pleasure gardens, as they were called in Renaissance, and after that with all sorts of effects, very few of them actually kept until today. But going on in history, I'm sorry. I have to mention this musical clock with dancing automata, a spinet, and an organ made by Welt Laugenbücher and Samuel Biedermann around 1625. So it's this ebony case where all are 16-note pipe organ and 16-string spinet that may be played independently on the organ. And in addition to all these, colorfully clad commedia dell'arte figures perform a circling dance in the clock. So it has both a sound and a visual presence of a sort. This clock is perhaps at that time the most musically elaborate automatic instrument to survive from the early 17th century, which is quite impressive. Again, I cannot avoid the term amazing invention is this one by Pierre-Jacques Droz, a Swiss inventor this time, is the draftsman, the musician, and the scribe, end of 18th century. It was a very, very sophisticated device. For example, the scribe, whose mechanism is made out of nearly 6,000 parts and 40 distinct cams, can dip his quill into ink and write sentences up to 40 characters. Amazing. And you can, the user can change and program the scribe to write different texts, which is quite impressive. The musician is a full-size adolescent girl who plays a non-automatic organ by pressing the keys with her fingers. And she appears to watch her fingers breathe and adjust her body as a real organist would do. The draftsman, like the scribe, looks like a toddler boy and is capable of producing 4 different drawings. A dog, a portrait of Louis XV, a royal couple, and Cupid driving a chariot pulled by a butterly. So quite a sophisticated drawing. And jumping over the centuries, it's a Popper's Rex orchestrion. Built between 1913 and 1915, we're not sure about the exact date. And it was built by Hugo Popper, who the founder, a major figure in mechanical musical instrument in the late 19th century and 20th century. It's a fully pneumatic orchestrion, a keyboardless full piano, organ pipes, percussion instruments. And not only that, but the front, I'll show you a video right away, has a motion picture style scene, an animated or moving, with animated or moving elements that is backlit, creating a visual spectacle when it plays. So let me show you a short, hope it works. Aha, works, just a short excerpt. yeah, I'm sorry, but I will cut short this, but just to make an idea. Obviously, we're in the entertainment area. It's something totally different that we all perhaps interested in here tonight or in my discussion here. And now I turn the attention to acousmonium that everybody here tonight knows very well. This is a picture from 1980 installed in Olivier Messiaen Concert Hall at Maison de Radio France, and it was built by a group de recherche musicale, which was founded by, as you know, Pierre Schaeffer in 1958. It's interesting to note that Pierre Schaeffer is not only famous for being the founder of the musique concrète, but now is regarded as one of the precursors in thinking about the concept of sampling, which is, I think, very important for from today's point of view in so many ways. The first version of acousmonium was built, as you very well know, by François Bayle in 1974. What I want to note is that all these mechanisms, devices and systems we've seen until now, as different, as unique as each of them are, have something in common. They hide the principles of functioning, and they are agents rather than pure instruments. What they let out is only the sound, the image, the phenomenological manifestation of sound or image. This is what links, at least in Pierre Schaeffer's view, Pythagoras' method of speaking from behind a curtain and radio recording devices. And this was something discussed yesterday, I mentioned yesterday at least. And here's a quote from Pierre Schaeffer, and I think it's very relevant for this subject matter. The acousmatic situation in a general fashion symbolically precludes any relation with what is visible, touchable, measurable. Moreover, between the experience of Pythagoras and our experience of radio recordings, the difference separating direct listening through a curtain, as Pythagoras famously has done, and indirect listening through a speaker in the end becomes negligible. So we can interrogate and we might question together with Pierre Schaeffer, what are the characteristics of the current acousmatic situation? And let me put forward some AI installations this time. I'm trying to overarch this understanding of them from my point of view of automatic authorship and machinic functioning. And this is Trevor Paglen, who's one of the main figures of AI art. This is called Behold These Glorious Times with exclamation mark. It's composed of images from two sources. We have to know that it's 2017, so quite a while before the 2022 boom of AI that we know, and a lot of artists aligned to AI mechanisms of creation. So this is 2017, so it's quite impressive from this point of view as well. And I will explain shortly. The video installation is composed of images from two sources. The photographic images in the video are parts of training libraries used to teach artificial intelligence network how to recognize objects, faces, gestures, relationships, emotions, and much more. They are images to teach machine how to see, quote unquote, how to see. So they're images that learn the machine how to see. The second kind of images is what a deep neural network actually seeing when ingests these images, and this is the expression of Trevor Paglen himself. So in order to learn how to recognize the images, the eye breaks images into hundreds of component parts and tries to put them back together. And this is quite impressive, again, given that it was made before the quite advanced, actually, platforms that artists use nowadays. So 2017 seems a long time ago when we speak about AI. It's like, oh, yeah, it's before our era. Okay. Another example, again, a classic, let's say, if I may use and abuse this term a little bit. Mario Klingemann, it's a German artist, one of the, again, most important, or at least most active artists in the field of AI. This is Memories of Passerby from 2018, the first version. The work uses a complex system of generative adversarial networks, the GANs, to automatically produce an infinite stream of unique AI-generated portraits of non-existent people. Unlike traditional generative art, it does not rely on a database of pre-existing images. Instead, the AI housed in a custom-made chestnut wood console creates each portrait pixel by pixel in real time, interpreting its own output in a feedback loop that ensures no image is ever repeated. And the work displays eerie, surreal portraits of male and female faces trained on thousands of 17th to 19th century European portrait painting, filtered through Klingemann aesthetic preferences inspired by surrealists like Max Ernst. And they morph one to another. And perhaps, just for fun fact, it was bought by Sotheby's in 2019. It was auctioned between 30,000 and 40,000 pounds. So AI can sell. Okay, it's not our point here at all, but I think it's interesting to note this as well. And of course, speaking about this, I cannot give Refik Anadol's example in, I know people attending AI's conference, they don't want to see Refik Anadol's example anymore. But still, perhaps I abused that a little bit. But he's a classic, and this work is a classic, let's say. I mean, it's very interesting, very important, both technically and conceptually, and it's also widely discussed. So, so basically, the work is called Unsupervised. It was installed in 2022, but actually prolonged until 2023. Sorry, in the atrium in MoMA, Museum of Modern Art in New York. And it basically uses a software that uses the huge archive of images from MoMA. There are about hundreds of thousands of images from MoMA, and the software takes those images and turn them, let's say, into sort of abstract moving composition. Not only that, but the composition itself is never the same. So this is not a video. This is generated in real time there in the MoMA at every moment. And not only that, but the image and the outcome of the image itself is influenced by the weather, outside weather, and different external factors. I have a short video that perhaps explains that it's much more than a simple video, abstract video. Okay, so I'm sorry cutting this short again, but you know, we don't have time to see it, and yeah, it's just to make an idea about the principles of the principles on which it's working. Another example I'd like to show is Urs Fischer. Refik Anadolu is a Turkish artist, one of the most active in the AI field. The same Urs Fischer, a German artist this time, and he built this installation which called denominator. It's a LED cube with thousands of images that he picked through AI software, images from advertising. So different advertising that are not projected, I mean, delivered through these surfaces, but they are cut effectively just on criterion based on form, on color, on subject matter. So effectively cutting any commercial meaning of the images. He said that he was fascinated about advertising since he was a kid. So he worked in this critical way this time with advertising. I have a short excerpt of. Let me see if it is what. Yeah. Yeah, sorry about the music, it's not my fault. Yeah. Okay. All right, so I'll show you a video and I'll explain this work in a short, but let me just make some theoretical observations on the things that I propose to discuss, I mean, very short and very quickly tonight about automatism. And my argument is that both acousmonium and AI installations, so the type of involving AI, the way of involving AI in this type of installation, in both cases the process of selection of their main sources, that means the sonorous object, as Schaeffer has called the sound in acousmonium, and the media object, as Lev Manovich has called the individual image or sound from a database. So in both cases, the process, we might say until a certain point, they are similar, or at least they can be commented or seen in the same conceptual and also practical framework. And going back to the sonorous objects, this is the term advanced by Pierre Schaeffer in his foundational work Traité des objets musicaux from 1966, and he defines it as a sonorous object, objet sonore, as a discrete unit of sound, typically a short fragment, often lasting a few seconds, isolated from its causal sources, context, or any visual or semantic association, and experienced purely through reduced listening, écoute réduite. I think the concept is extremely interesting and still usable, let's say, in today's much more advanced context. And it pairs very well with the other term that I mentioned here, that is media object, or new media object, as Lev Manovich has called it, which he describes as as traditional media forms such as graphics, moving images, sound, shapes, spaces, and text that have been rendered computable through digitization. And this has a number of principles that characterize this media object is numerical representation, modularity, automation, variability, transcoding, and so on. I don't want to get into too much media theory here, but just to make an idea, because the essence, the basic element of both is this object, which is, in my view, extremely interesting. But what is at stake is, in both cases, the decentering of the human creator, at least in its traditional sense. Both provoke questions about authorship, agency, and presence. If the selection in the first case in acousmonium is a subjective human act, in the second, in AI, it's an automatic algorithmic selection. What counts in both cases, however, is their spatial diffusion, their existence as a manifestation, as an event, and surely their automatic dimension. And this is what we can call in both cases an operational image, an operational creative product. This chip blurs the distinction between creative representation and automatic production, challenges anthropocentric views of creativity, and raises ethical questions about labor, prejudice, and planetary crisis in the Anthropocene, which is made an argument that is sometimes dropped on discussions on AI. And here, let me quote from Joanna Zielinska, who's a Polish-British theorist on AI, and she says that this approach supersedes the analysis of the art object as a singular entity with supposedly timeless value, with a more relational understanding of art's production, reception, and recognition in specific socio-historical contexts, unquote. So we can, precisely for this reason, we can ask together with Zielinska, is there an ontological difference between early computer-generated art, net art, and the more recent forms of AI-driven art? Or is it just a difference of degree, that is, of the mode and intensity of technological entanglement? And I think it's a totally legitimate question. Before going to the next step, I just want to present this work. It's by Timothy Thompson. He's a Canadian artist. I'm feeling lucky. You remember when you search on Google, it's not something present anymore, but it gives you the search with I'm feeling lucky. It gives you the preferred results. Anyway, this is a huge construction, usually on a curved screen, and what we have here is a slow-moving camera that moves on a landscape. Except that landscape is totally artificial. It's built through AI, totally AI, and this landscape is inhabited, quote unquote, by different people. Or these people are actually picked from Google Street View in real time. And not only they are picked from there, from anywhere in the world, but they are built in 3D immediately with gaming software capabilities. So they pick these images, turn them in 3D, and plant them effectively in the landscape. So it's a super weird landscape which appears true or real, but actually it's totally artificial. And not only that, but it brings some I don't know, some people who not only that they are not aware that Google camera pictures them, but they are not aware that they are now participating in Timothy Thompson's work. I have a video as well, a short. Let me. Huh? Aha. Yeah, this is an online video, so perhaps it doesn't work, and it doesn't. I'm sorry about that. I was so... You know, we're talking about technology, and sometimes technology plays on us so in so basic way. Yeah, so I'm sorry I cannot play. But I know it sounds perhaps, but I encourage you to go online and check the work. This is another example. Let me just leave it here. This is again a Canadian artist, Irregular. This is actually a collective under this name, Irregular. It's a work which uses both real objects to intervene and interact with the images and images that are created live by AI. And it's very interesting. And on the left and on the right, there are two poles with different prompts. And if you push on a certain prompt, the images changes. And people play with prompts and images created, also with objects and also among them. That's very interesting because it's a so it's not a first-person necessarily experience, but it's a community experience, which is extremely interesting, especially using these type of prompts to. Let me just go to the last part of my presentation and say a few words about the mise-en-scène. Because in my view, beside their automatic principle, other common points for all these systems presented above is their spatial presence and fictional dimension. So both spatial presence and fictional dimension, their ambiguous positioning as a something between thing and event. I will explain shortly. But let's remember that many composers who started working with electronic sounds in the 50s experimented with specialization of sound. Stockhausen, for example, famously used rotating loudspeakers to achieve a space effect. Schaeffer and Pierre-Henri distributed speakers throughout the space. And when Bale built the acousmonium, he stated, and here I quote, "It puts you inside the sound. It's like the interior of a sound universe," unquote. The acousmonium was conceived as, and here I quote again from Bale, "another utopia devoted to pure listening as a projection area arranged for the immersion in sound and a spatialized polyphony," unquote. So the notion of mise-en-scène is used here not in its, let's say, traditional sense, which refers to arrangement of all visual elements with the frame or elements in cinema. So I will rather use the conceptualization advanced by cultural theorist Mieke Ball, who conceive it in a broad semiotic and narratological sense, extending it beyond its traditional use in theater and film to describe how meaning is visually and spatially organized. She defines the term mise-en-scène as in a relevant way for our discussion as and here I quote, "a differently delimited section of fictional time and space." Nice. So she understands the mise-en-scène not only as a background for several arts, but rather as an organization of visual and spatial elements in a way that produces narrative and effective effects. So not simply a technical term from film, but a theoretical concept that helps us understand how meaning is produced through visual arrangement. Therefore, both acousmonium and AI installations are about delegating control in a way or another, either to spatial diffusion or algorithmical process, and about listening and seeing as acts of discovery rather than of command. And this is, as we have seen, has important consequences in what concerns the definition of authorship, now decentered beyond the traditional triangle artist-instrument-public. This is an important discussion, and it's quite large discussion. I don't want to get into that, but I just want to drop Michel Foucault's name, who referred to this different type of authorship as author function. That means a discursive construction of authorship rather than a person. I think it's both of them put this in a very nice light, both theoretically and practically. So I would conclude that in the circumstances discussed here, the author becomes rather a curator and a facilitator than an artist or composer in its traditional sense. Moreover, beside the dispersed authorship, we should speak in both cases about interpretation over reproduction, diffusion as a core mechanism, ephemerality and liveness with the important consequence of unpredictability. So yes, well beyond any superficial resemblance, the acousmonium can legitimately be seen as an important conceptual ancestor of today's art practices. So, thank you. Is there any question, answers session, or how's the format? I'm happy to answer a few questions if there's still time there. I don't know, 5 minutes left or something? Or comments, yes, absolutely. Oh, yeah, sure. Microphone? Mm-hmm.
Thank you for your presentation. Interesting to hear your thoughts. I'm curious. So, from this connection between like the sound object and the AI kind of, or the new media object, do you see kind of, I don't know, a new way to approach or to maybe to develop the reception or the production of acousmatic art from this standpoint of new media? Like looking at it from this perspective, maybe can breathe some fresh air into this?
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, I think yes, but I'm not an artist. I'm a theorist, so perhaps artists should answer this question. But from my point of view, yes, and not only that, these two concepts match together in a way or another. But the input itself can be, yeah, and they are, perhaps, to my knowledge, I don't know, but perhaps there are some examples of acousmonium performances which include AI in a way or another, absolutely. Yeah, so the answer is yes, but perhaps the artists should answer this question: how open, how, I don't know, yeah. How much are yeah, open to include that, or in a way that?
I have a comment on this question, actually. So if we think of how AI works, we actually don't know. It's like a black box. We don't know what happens inside. We only know what it produces. So for example, we have like a setting like this where we play sounds through speakers, and we don't see the source, but we know it's there. We can see it in the computer. We can see how it was engineered. But with AI, we cannot see that, or at least as much as, for example, in this setup. So I think that's a different kind of expertise.
Yeah, not only an expertise, but it's also a different different mechanism in a way or another. But the point is very correct. Absolutely, it's totally true. It's different, but still there are some parts in some AI installations that provide something from behind. For example, the prompts are over there, so you know what the prompts are, which influence the images. And it's not the only one. There are some others who effectively explain what's behind it, and some other show how the mechanisms work. Even if we cannot see, like here on the console, exactly what it happens, but something we can actually intuitively know, or yeah, what's going on. But yeah, that will be the difference perhaps. And people speak about the black box in, referring to AI. Yeah. No questions? Huh? Oh. Okay. Since there are no questions, thank you very much.